Hello everybody, today I am behind the wheel of my mother's 2014 Lexus GS350 F Sport. Now the GS is the middle range of Lexus's lineup, so it basically competes with the Audi A6 and the BMW 5 Series and the Mercedes E-Class. This is the 3.5 liter V6, which is the only engine offered on the Lexus. All the other German competitors have multiple engine options from 4 cylinders all the way up to 8 cylinders, like the BMW 550i and the Audi S6. This car is getting a V8 when they do the Lexus GSF. That is not to be confused with this car. That car will have a 5 liter V8 straight from the ISF and the RCF, tuned to a little bit more horsepower, so I think it's getting about 480 horsepower. So it's still no M5 killer. Not exactly sure who they're trying to sell that car to, because it's very powerful, 488 horsepower, but it's not nearly as powerful as even the current M5, which has 580. So it's 100 horsepower down already, and the new M5, which is going to come out soon, is going to have way more than that. So I don't know what Lexus is doing there. This is a pretty nice middle ground though, having the 3.5 liter V6. It's basically the same motor that's in a Camry, except it's got a lot more than a Camry. Camry also is front wheel drive. This is rear wheel drive, which definitely makes this feel much more expensive than a Camry. And a Camry only has 270 horsepower. This has 305. So it is about 30 horsepower more. So this is an extremely comfortable car. I've got tons of amenities in here. You don't even need the key to get in. You just keep it in your pocket, put your hand on the door, it opens, you push the push button start, and the seat slides towards the pedals, and the steering wheel rises up towards you. So it's easier to get in and out of the car. So when you shut it off, the steering wheel lifts up and gives you more room so your fat gut doesn't bump into it. And that's basically the theme of this car. There's an analog clock, because that's what old Lexus buyers like. I've got air-conditioned seats, which I use every day in Florida. They're fantastic. They keep even my fat ass from getting sweaty on long road trips. And this car is amazing on the highway. It's got an 8-speed gearbox, so it just goes down to 8th, or goes up to 8th, and sits there. There's basically no engine noise. There's a tiny bit of wind noise that comes from the mirrors, I think, because they're oddly shaped. But if you have the radio on in any capacity, you cannot hear them. You cannot hear the wind noise coming from the windows, so it's not that bad. Other than that, this car is incredibly comfortable. The steering is a little bit heavier than on Lexuses of old. I've driven, old Lexuses like the LS 430, the ES 300, and the ES 330, and they had steering that you could do with your pinky, which was basically made for old people that didn't want to know that they were driving a car. They wanted to just get to their doctor's appointments so that they wouldn't die waiting for death, and they needed a car to get there, and they didn't want to feel like they actually had to turn a wheel. It was so light. This is very, very different. And this is the F Sport model. So what do you get with the F Sport model? You get gray wheels, which make the car look fantastic. My mom has the Star White Pearl exterior and the Cabernet red leather. I don't know if you can see the seat behind me. It's like a burgundy red leather, which looks incredibly sporty. And the F Sport package with the gray wheels, you get a little bit firmer suspension, and I think the tuning is a little bit different on the engine. You get no more power. It's 305 horsepower if you get a base one. If you get the F Sport, surprisingly, the most powerful GS that you can get right now until the F comes out with the V8 is the hybrid. Surprisingly, it has about 60 more horsepower than this and a lot more torque. So if you want the fastest Lexus GS you can buy, don't get the one with sport in its name, get the hybrid. Yeah, that makes sense to me. But the one thing that you do get on GS350 F Sport that you don't get in a normal one is this Sport Plus mode button. Now, all of the GSs are going to have this little switch knob here, which goes left to Eco, push down for normal, over to the right for Sport. But then on the F Sport, if you kick it over again one more time, you engage Sport Plus mode. And everybody that's driven this car that I've let drive it can definitely affirm this, that the steering does get heavier. It's electrically power assisted, so they change the weight. It's pretty light when you put it in normal mode, and then when you put it in Sport Plus, you definitely feel the steering get a lot more sport car like. Definitely not, Miata or BMW level heaviness, but it's pretty close, and it's not as good as Audi's system that changed the entire personality of the car, but it definitely helps. Among the other changes in Sport Plus mode, the suspension gets harder, so you feel when you take a corner really high in this car, it's 3,800 pounds, which is pretty light as far as the segment goes. The E-Class and the A6 are way heavier at like 4,300 pounds. So it's pretty light, but it's no sports car. But when you put it in Sport Plus mode, you can definitely feel the suspension keeping the car much flatter. And the sportier steering definitely helps too. So it feels really good. And then you've got the paddle shifters on the wheel. So when you put it in sport mode and you feel the exhaust baffles open up, you can definitely hear it when you go to floor it. So I'm going to downshift a couple times here, just so you guys can get a little bit of taste of the V6. It sounds pretty good for a V6. I can't say that of all engines, but this sounds pretty good. So yeah, I definitely love driving this. It's the right mix of sporty and comfortable. I mean, you don't even have to shut the trunk, because that's for peasants, having to move your hand and shutting the trunk. There's a button. You push the button and it closes. It goes beep. It closes. So it's great for old people, but it's also great for old people that wanted to have something that's not as boring as your typical old person car. The old Buicks, the old Lexuses, they got stuck in a rut where all of their clients were dying off. So they had to reinvent themselves quick, and they've done that with the F-Sport models. And I am stuck here. All right, I think this review is over because I'll show you guys here. I'm on this little back road near my house, and I am blocked off. There is no way for me to get out of here. So I think this review's over.